Hello, Grandpassers, and welcome to our Wimbledon tournament review. This is probably coming a little late for some people, but finals were over. I was pretty beat, and I was like, I don't want to force a podcast right now. I'm probably not going to say the right things. So we took a few hours off. The podcast will still be out on Monday if you're listening tonight or this evening. Probably not for our European listeners. They're in bed. But for anyone who's on the West Coast of the United States or anything like that, they'll be listening. In this episode, we are going to be talking about the men's and women's finals, our thoughts about the tournament in general, best and worst moments from Wimbledon, and also we'll be looking at the Newport Open, which I went to for a few days last week, and also looking ahead to the Citi Open, which I am very, very excited for. Nick, how are you doing?
Well, I'm great. I'm very much excited to talk about what happened at Wimbledon because, it's the last few pieces of the puzzle in terms of the story falling into place.
Okay, so let's jump right in because we have a lot to talk about. And let's start with the finals of Wimbledon. We have two new champions. We have Iga Swiatek is the women's champion, and then Jannik Sinner is the men's champion. It's been a while. I guess on the men's side, they tend to have repeat champions. This is the first new one in a couple of years, though Carlos Alcaraz is a repeat finalist as well. And on the women's side, it's another new champion, someone who I think was unexpected coming into this year. I would say this year, because I feel like based on the grass court season that we had, it's maybe not so much of a surprise. But I think at the start of the year, if anyone was picking what woman would win Wimbledon, I do not think that they would have picked Iga Swiatek. So what do you think about the finalists in general of the tournament?
The finalists. We kind of did this a little bit.
The winners, not the finalists. The winners.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm sure we did that. Okay, we'll do Iga Swiatek first. I'm a mixture of happy and a little surprised that she won it based on, the start of the year, we weren't necessarily picking her. But it's weird, as the year went on, I was like, Iga could do this because she was having kind of a weird upside down year. And I thought, it would just be the most perfect upside down year if she won Wimbledon. And Wimbledon tends to reward people who are very consistent, who do well, whatever tournament it is, and go pretty deep into draws and just survive the chaos. And Iga is the best at that, or one of the best at that. So Iga Swiatek winning this one, I was like, yeah, cool, that's it. And she is now the 8th woman ever to have won a Grand Slam on all 3 surfaces, which is very, very rare. And looks like she's absolutely loving being a Wimbledon champion. And even she didn't expect it. Even she's talking about, I wasn't expecting that. But she knew that if she worked hard, she could compete. And boy, did she compete. And she did really, really well there. And on the men's side, Jannik Sinner. I always thought he could win Wimbledon. I was surprised that everyone was kind of back and cast to beat him so easily. Sinner has always had a great game for grass. That serve of his is incredible. And after what happened with Dimitrov, I think he just locked in and decided that now it's time to play his best tennis. And it does seem to track that, especially on the men's game, if you have a bit of a scare, they just lock in and play their best from that point forward. And you could see that was happening with Sinner. And I thought he and Carlos played a really good final, as we would come to expect. I watched that match with some friends and we were absolutely in awe of everything that both guys were doing. But I think what was quite interesting was the majority of the room I was in was rooting for Carlos Alcaraz. And Sinner actually won people over during that match. By the end of it, they were everyone was really pleased for him that he'd won it, especially with some of the shots he was playing, some of the rallies that he won. Like that game he won to win the second set was, I don't think he could have played a better game in terms of being able to just out-hit Carlos Alcaraz in the way that he did. And it just kind of went from there, really. And the longer the match went on, the more you felt like Sinner was the better player. And I think this sets up Wimbledon being very, very exciting in future years, as every Grand Slam is. But I think particularly from a British perspective, everyone's going to be talking about, can we have Alcaraz and Sinner again, please?
Yeah. It was definitely a good final. Yeah, for me, I think after Iga did not win Roland Garros, I was actually thinking that she actually might win Wimbledon. I am one of those of the opinion that because she always has won Roland Garros, she's never really, and she's kind of actually said it herself, that she just feels like the calendar is so crunched up in between Roland Garros and Wimbledon, and she's never really had time to fully. I mean, it's impossible to have like a full training session on grass, but have some time on the surface and get used to it and comfortable. And I remember her saying that in an interview. So once she didn't win Roland Garros this year, I thought, you know what, she has a really good chance at winning Wimbledon. And then after Bad Homburg, I was like, oh, she has a really good chance of winning Wimbledon. But of course, you always have players like Arina Sabalenka or Elena Rybakina or Coco Gauff. And it seemed like coming into this tournament, there was a really big group of players that could win Wimbledon on the women's side. And it was very kind of, you kept going back and forth, like, who could it be? I think the one surprise, well, not even surprise, because Amanda Anisimova did really well at Queen. So I just think there was like a really big group of players on the women's side that had a chance at winning Wimbledon. And I really wasn't surprised that Iga got herself there at least to the finals and then win, because as we know, she's currently still undefeated in Grand Slam finals.
Mm-hmm.
Once she gets there, she kind of wins them. So that's going to be, I'm sure, a task for the field. And then on the men's side, I think the thought of having another Sinker-ass final was almost too good to be true. Like, I think that was my main thing with the men's side of this tournament, where I thought, are we hyping up these two guys so much and expecting another final from them right after they just met for the first time at a Grand Slam final? And I thought, I don't know if this will happen again. And as they kept each inching up the ladder to get to that spot, I thought, wow, like this might actually happen again. So I remember, I think I tweeted this I posted it as kind of like a poll during the men's final. And I was like, who's winning this? Carlos Alcaraz, Jannik Sinner, or tennis? And I think tennis won the men's Wimbledon championship this year. So really great to see Jannik Sinner win. I think he's such a great player. Like, of the two, I think we call them now the new two. Of the new two, he definitely is, I think, the more straight-laced is what you would say. Like, straight as an arrow, kind of like locked in all the time. He had this sort of challenge in Carlos Alcaraz, who's won the last 5 of their matches. So I think it was, important for him to finally get across the line and win one of these. A really lovely stat. Bastian, I can't even remember how to say his name, but he's a what is Bastian? Just like a commentator, I guess, like a
Yeah,
tennis
he's a social
commentator,
media, like a fan who does a bit of social media stuff. So
social media work.
he actually
Yeah,
works for the ATP and WTA doing social media for them. But obviously he's so good at his own
got it.
personal account is pretty big.
Yeah, so his name's Bastian. He's on X, and he posted this. At least that was the first place that I saw it. Was the only person to have beaten Carlos Alcaraz in a final is Jannik Sinner, and the only
Mm.
in a Grand Slam final, and the only person to beat Jannik Sinner in a Grand Slam final is Carlos Alcaraz. And it actually was similar with Rafa Nadal and Roger
Roger
Federer
Federer.
in their very first, finals that they lost. It was Nadal lost to Federer and Federer lost to Nadal. So I think it's very interesting that history repeats itself, and we have now these two players who are creating a great rivalry for tennis. So winning championship wise, I think these were really great winners to have this championship. And now we can talk about the finals themselves. Because I made I do our daily recap things, and I did one after the final for the women. I haven't done the men's one yet because, again, exhaustion. I will do one. But what did you think of the women and the men's final?
Okay, so um, they were very different finals. Very different finals. It's kind of weird. So I would say they were both a little bit of a letdown for different reasons. Sinner Alcaraz was only a letdown because it didn't go 5 sets, and I just want more Sincaraz. But it was still a really, really good match, and I thought Carlos was going to kind of come back at the end, and I was excited for that. But at the end of it, I just sat back and went, I still watched a really good tennis match, and I feel pretty good about it afterwards. I think it was a good way of spending an afternoon with some friends watching it. And then the women's side, I know I think it's deeply ironic that what happened when I talked about watching one-sided matches when I absolutely love watching one particular player do their thing.
Mm-hmm.
And in some ways, this was Iga Swiatek doing her thing. And if I'm going to watch anyone doing their thing and winning matches, it's her. The problem was I don't think she needed to do her thing. She didn't bother because Anastasia was kind of not putting up as much of a fight as I thought she would. And I think afterwards it's very clear that, yeah, she'd run out of gas. She'd used all of her energy to get through Arena Sabalenka, and unfortunately, no energy is not good enough against someone like Iga Swiatek, who I think is the worst person to play in a Grand Slam final if you are not feeling it. Maybe Jannik Sinner as well, but she gives you nothing. She's like, oh, you're hurting. I'm still going to make you work, and I'm not going to miss, and you're going to have to work as hard as you can to beat me, especially since that's how she is in Grand Slam finals. She's always so locked in. So if you are not near your best, she is the worst person to play. And so I am definitely more excited about the result than the final itself. Really easy rewatch, but I will say that it was the level of one-sidedness was impressive the more it went on.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe as a kind of that tennis purist in me did want it to be a bit more of a contest, but I can still sit back and just admire how the match management on the biggest possible stage that Iga Swiatek has, and sit back and go, well, I did witness history today, and that's something.
Yeah. It's funny because, I mean, not funny, but we have our Wimbledon screening. So I watched the men's and women's final with a group of people, which I have to say, the Wimbledon screenings and the ones that we did before for Roland Garros, which are our first ever screenings ever, have been the most rewarding things of these last two Grand Slams. Just, I think even for the Carlos Alcaraz and Jannik Sinner one, the men's final, there were so many people who came there in their own friend groups, so they came as, we're all Sinner fans, or, oh, we're all Carlos fans. But by the middle of it, they were all chatting and talking to each other and, making new friends. And it was just the most happy, uplifting moment. And most people who left, they were like, are we doing this for the US Open? Like, we need to do this for the US Open. And I thought, I hadn't planned to do it for the US Open specifically because I live in New York and I want to be at the Open. But it's definitely something I'm considering. US Open finals tickets are so expensive. It would be nice to give people kind of a space where, for not much money, you can come and just watch the tennis and, maybe buy yourself a honeydews from the bar or something like that. So definitely something we're considering, and we'll see as we go through and see if I at least do the finals of the US Open there. Because, hey, if there's a Grand Slam in my city, I want to actually go to it. But yeah, for me, watching the women's final with a group of people, I mean, I have never been in a more quiet room with a group of people ever. It was, I think,
From the videos you posted of it.
Yeah, it was like you could hear a pin drop because I think people were just completely shocked. I will have to say, there was not one person there wanting Iga to win. It's an American player in the Wimbledon final. They were all there trying to support the American player. So it was just dead silent. Like, I was like, not one person is going to like clap. Like, it was kind of eerie. I was like, oh wow, this is really bad. But in terms of, an athletic feat, and so from time to time, I do this thing with my friend Akin, Hot Takes with Akin. He's a former tennis player. And I actually did some recording with him yesterday, and I asked him, which is a question that I stole from the Surge podcast. I asked him and I said, it's a Wimbledon final. Couldn't she just like give her a game, anything? And he was like, absolutely not. Like, absolutely not. It is not something you do. It's sport. And Amanda Anisimova would have been absolutely, upset if that had happened as well. I mean, she was upset that she lost 6-love, 6-love. I don't think we've set the score, but she lost 6-love, 6-love. A double bagel in a Grand Slam final, it's pretty upsetting. And actually watching Amanda was a bit upsetting because you could just see her sadness and frustration and not being able to get a game or anything. And like you said, Iga is relentless, and there is something so admirable of that, just sort of laser focused relentlessness, that she's not breaking, she's not going to let up, she's not going to sort of like make it easy. No, she's going to win, and she's going to win as fast as possible and get her trophy, period. So that is very admirable to see, that to have an athlete like her who can do something like that. And you just wished Amanda had a bit more gas to put up a fight. I have a very strong opinion of the fact that she had never played Iga before is an element of it too. I don't know. I think watching Iga over the years, I just feel like she's just a player where if you haven't felt her ball before, it must be tough to just be like, okay, cool. Let me do that at a Grand Slam final for the first time. So yeah, the women's final was definitely not enjoyable from a watching perspective. Like, didn't have fun watching that. The result of it was very interesting. The men's final too, though, I mean, after the second set, I knew Sinner was winning. Like it just kind of, even in the fourth set where it was at 40-love, and then Alcaraz gets a point, and then it's 40-15, and everyone was like, ooh, is this gonna, are we gonna get a redo of the French? And I was like, no, we're not. Nope. Sinner was so locked in after that second set, because I think he knew he made a mistake in the first and probably should have won this in 3. So it was enjoyable to watch because there was that sort of evenness, in the sense that Carlos was there a bit. I don't personally think he played the best Carlos Alcaraz tennis I've ever seen. I've seen him play better, but also just watching with a group of people, half for Sinner, half for Alcaraz. And it was just fun. And it was friendly. Like, everyone was just happy to be there and happy to be watching fun tennis. And so that made that fun and exciting as well. So yeah, I would say I enjoyed the men's final better than the women's, but at the same time, I don't think the men's was, French Open classic. Like
It was
I
never going to
felt
be
so
that.
many things during the French Open.
It was never going to be that. That's the thing. Nothing could be the French Open. It's so rare to have matches like that so close together. Like, it was never going to be that. I wasn't expecting that. I just wanted it to be a good match and to see Sinkeraz and
I'm sure
why that
Wimbledon
rivalry
was
is so
hoping it
good.
would be a classic.
Yeah. Yeah, like a Wimbledon classic maybe, but not an all-time classic, not like the big picture classic level. But 5-set final would have been enough for me. I still think we kind of got it. I mean, we got that crazy kind of topsy-turvy first set where Sinner's ahead, and then Alcaraz breaks back and grabs it, and then Sinner is trying to hold on for dear life in the second set. And then the third set was weird because it was like, it felt very neutral for a lot of it, but you could tell that it was working towards Sinner. Like, he was having a lot less trouble holding serve, and Alcaraz was starting to struggle a bit more. And then it kind of fourth set, you kind of knew once Sinner got the break, he was probably going to win it, but there was still that question of, but if Alcaraz wakes up, then it's on. So I think there was some intrigue in there to keep us guessing. But yeah, I knew full well we weren't going to get the French Open. There was no way we were going to get the French Open again. And so I managed my expectations a little bit more. And as I said, the only disappointment I have is that it didn't go 5.
Yeah, yeah. I kind of want to talk about next, like, what this means for tennis in general, because the finals we got, Amanda Anisimova, Iga Swiatek, Carlos Alcaraz, Jannik Sinner, young players, all in their early 20s. It was it's not the first time. That's a lie, Anastasia. You've been thinking this for 2 years. But I think it was the first finals that we got where I really was like, new era. This is it. We're in the new era officially.
It's the first finals where all 4 players in the singles were born in the 2000s. That's what we're looking for here. So yeah, we are officially kind of in this kind of new generation, and still more to come from it. I think you can kind of see it from when we talked about it on our semi-final show when Sinner beat Djokovic. Like, that's it. The new guys are here.
Yeah.
And Djokovic, like, it's the first final in 8 years that Djokovic isn't in, which is crazy. And yeah, these guys have taken over the men's, and I do think that now every Grand Slam going forward, it's going to be that question: are we going to get a synchronized final? Like that is
Yeah.
going to be the question every single Grand Slam until somebody else joins the party, like a João Fonseca or a Leonard Tien or a Colton Smith, Ethan Quinn. Those kind of guys. The women's side, I think you're starting to see kind of more of a coalescence around certain players are always going to be there. It's a question of whether the field's going to beat them. And those players are Iga Swiatek, Arina Sabalenka, and Coco Gauff. Mira Andreeva may well join that party soon, but we'll see how long that takes. But that's kind of where I'm at. Is it's going to come down to, can a Madison Keys or an Amanda Anisimova bring the level to stop them? And with Keys, the answer was yes. And Anisimova she got halfway there.
Yeah.
But, that's where we are now with the bigger picture in my mind is, we're settling into a new pattern, a new set of stories with this post-Big Three, post-Serena era.
Yeah. And, if you're a new fan coming into tennis right now, or, maybe you came in a couple of years, or even if you're an old fan and you're listening to us, hi, we are entering a new era. And I think it's so important in this time to, not sort of forget the past, just not focus on it. I think it's the time to sort of figure out who these new players are, who is the new field, like who are the new guys who are coming up, and kind of build on that versus looking back at the Big Four. The Big Four are great, and for history, totally go back and watch their matches, learn about who the history of the sport is. I just think this is sort of, you can say you were there first when we got like a new vibe and a new players coming up, because I think this is such an important time in the sport that we're almost, it's history happening right now, that we're going to look back at this time. I really do think we're going to look back at this time and say, that's when the new era started. Let's kind of talk about now our best and worst parts of Wimbledon, because Wimbledon was a 2-week event. It seemed like it was 5 days, but it was 2 weeks long. And I kind of want us to talk about our best and worst part, not like a long list. I only have one worst moment, but 2 best. And I can start with the best. Let's talk about what was good first. First of all, the chaos. I loved the chaos. Now, if you're new to sort of following the tour and following tennis, the grass season always just kind of brings the chaos, because it's a surface that we don't experience for a long period of time. A lot of players don't get a huge amount of time to practice on the surface. There are some players who are just naturally adapted to playing on grass, like Carlos Alcaraz. I think he was on the surface for 5 minutes and then he was like, "Ooh, I got it. I understand." But not everyone is like that. And that's why I think Wimbledon and grass court tournaments in general tend to bring the chaos. This Wimbledon, though, in my mind, is the most chaotic it's ever been. Like, I've just never seen this many seeds drop at the beginning of the first week of a tournament. The first 2 days was just chaotic in general. But I enjoyed it. I loved it, because with chaos brings new storylines. With the seeds out, you're sort of like, well, who's going to rise to the top? Who's the cream that's going to rise to the top? So I get it in general, where people are like, oh, well, maybe we'll have like a middle of the tournament that's not great because there are no seeds left. But I just think that's where all the best stories lie, is without the seeds. And you have like a Victoria Mboku coming in as a lucky loser last minute and actually getting, past the first round and into the second. Or you get Solana Sierra, who made it so far. You get Laura Siegemund, who made it to quarterfinals to play Arina Sabalenka. You get to see that sort of chaos happen, what she can do to top players and drive them crazy. So yeah, it's maybe, yes, we would love to see all the top players play all the time, but sometimes chaos is good.
Chaos is good, and that's one of my highlights of Wimbledon as well, to be honest. It's one of the things that I'll remember from the early days of like, and there's another one gone, And another one gone, and another one gone, another bites the dust karaoke with Nick. And please don't try and make me sing for longer. People will stop listening to the podcast. I think that for me is a big thing. I'm trying to go for something that's slightly different. I'm going to go with, for me, the best thing about this Wimbledon, aside from the chaos, is tennis being in the spotlight. You know, I don't. Maybe it's slightly different in the US, and you can correct me on this, Anastasia, but I don't think the US Open completely takes over the sporting airwaves or any airwaves in the US in the same way as Wimbledon does in the UK. Like, the main broadcaster of Wimbledon, like the BBC, which is probably the biggest broadcaster in the UK, clears its schedule and shows wall-to-wall tennis on both of its channels all day.
Yeah.
Can you imagine if CBS or NBC just cleared their schedules and put tennis on wall-to-wall on their primary channel and moved other things in their schedule around it? That's what happens. And that's what happens every year. And so it's quite traditional for British people to just sit and watch Wimbledon, and they'll never watch it the rest of the time, but they'll get really into it and they'll really enjoy it. But what I want is like this thing to capture the imagination and make people potentially come back for more, because in the post-Federer, post-Nadal and post-Murray era, people are struggling to know who people are, because the downside of a new generation coming in with a bit of a gap is people need to get to know them, and they kind of, you know, they like to see some consistency. And I think there were 3 moments overall which I think highlighted how much people are engaging. The first is Sabalenka against Raducanu. That third round match was the most watched women's match of the tournament ahead of the final, and was probably actually the only match that probably beat it was the men's final in terms of viewing figures. So that was tennis in the spotlight. There was nothing else on, no sports to clash with it. Everyone was invested in seeing whether Emma Raducanu could beat Aryna Sabalenka. And it got a lot of hype, and everyone was really excited about it afterwards, like, even though Emma lost. So that was really cool to see. It was really cool to see how hyped people were for a Sinker-Raz final. Like, when I'm trying to hype up and build up these matches on my social media because I want to watch it with other people and join in with it. And I got so many more interactions from people that I don't usually speak to, or like about Sinker-Raz, because they're finally getting to know it and getting excited for the possibility. Because the French Open final, although it wasn't watched by a lot of British people because it's cost a heck of a lot of money to go and watch, its reputation got through. And now we are seeing, and Carlos Alcaraz is loved by everyone now. Like, he's got such a huge British fan base now. This is now an era where I think when we're talking about the hype for Sinker-Raz, we're going to get that every year now. And I think that's great that we are moving into, hey, tennis has a future with people to get excited about. And the other thing I just want to mention is I just loved how everyone got to know Iga Swiatek this year, and how quirky and weird she allowed herself to be, and just how all in everyone on social media went with it. With the towel stealing, like, I don't know if you saw this, Wimbledon have given her her own personalised towel with her name on it, which was funny. Everyone's now trying strawberry pasta.
I will not do that. I will not be doing that, Iga. So sorry. No way. There's no way. I mean, no. I cannot. I mean, I get it. It's fine. Someone actually described it. Someone actually made it seem quite interesting to me, in the sense that they described it a little bit like rice pudding. Because with rice pudding, it's a starchy sort of carb, but then you can put fruit in it. You can put cinnamon and stuff like that. So they use that sort of way to describe it. And I thought, oh, you know what? That actually doesn't sound crazy when you just think of it with the parts. But I just can't bring myself to try it. I just can't.
It's getting mixed reviews, I will say that. I might actually try it. I need to get around to trying it.
Let us know how it goes.
I actually do want to try it, especially since, hey, look, it got her to the Wimbledon title. So,
there you
although
go.
apparently it's not unusual for people in Poland to eat. Like, apparently this is a Polish dish. So
yes, it is. No, it is a Polish dish. No, it totally is. It's a traditional Polish dish that is now worldwide. It's now made its debut on the world. But yeah, I just can't bring myself to try it. But Nick, as our resident Iga fan, you have to try it. You
Yes,
have to, and then you need to tell us about it.
Maybe I'll film it.
You probably should film it. There we go. He said it on the podcast, so this now has to happen. There you go. Okay, great.
Anything for the content. But yeah, no, that's my central point is it's got people talking. Okay, maybe the Iga thing's got more tennis fans talking, but it's a conversation starter.
Yeah.
And yeah, I do feel like a lot of people started watching tennis this Wimbledon and getting excited by it and falling in love with this new era. So yeah, that's why I'm going to go.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I definitely think tennis is having a moment, even from going to the screenings and just listening to people try and explain it to their friends. Like a lot of people came to the screenings in groups of friends where you could tell one person was the tennis person and then everyone else was just following along, and just listening to them trying to explain scoring and, do all of that stuff. Like it was really great. And I'm really excited how excited people are about tennis, because I think it's the best sport ever. Like we have an entire podcast dedicated to tennis. So really excited for people to get into it. My worst moment of Wimbledon is Grigor Dimitrov. Grigor Dimitrov, which I just heard, actually. I was listening to the Renee Stubbs podcast, and she apparently reached out to Grigor, who told her the exact injury. And he, I'm really sorry if anyone's squeamish, maybe just pause this part or skip 10 seconds, but he ripped his pec muscle from the bone. Like,
That's
that
not supposed to
is,
do that.
it's not supposed to do that. And, for those who might not know, he did post himself at a hospital, so he's gotten surgery for it. He says that he might be back by the US Open, but that's not guaranteed with an injury like this. The US Open's like tomorrow, like in all honesty. So it really is my worst part of Wimbledon, because I think it was such a sliding doors moment. There is no guarantee that he was going to beat Jannik Sinner at all, because again, it is best of 5. Who knows what would have happened? But he was in full flow. He had the lead 2-0. They were on serve in the third, and that happened. So it definitely is my worst moment of Wimbledon because of what could have been. That would have been such a moment for Grigor Dimitrov if he could get a win against the world number 1 at Wimbledon on the world stage. He is a player who I think a lot of people love, are very affectionate with, by calling him baby fed because of the way he plays. And you always kind of root for him to do well. And it was so unfortunate that his Wimbledon had to end that way, and, might affect his season in general. So that was my worst part of Wimbledon.
I don't like doing worst moments, especially since I've enjoyed doing this 2 weeks. This 2 weeks so much. This is already one of my favourite Wimbledons. I cannot think of a moment anywhere near as low as Grigor Dimitrov ripping his pec muscle during the match of his life against Jannik Sinner. Pretty much.
Yeah.
That's how cruel sport can be sometimes. And but everyone was so flat after that happened. It was so gutting. I have a friend of mine who is a physiotherapist who specializes in injury rehab, and she was watching that match and she was like, yeah, that's not good. And she was telling me about it. She actually treated someone with a similar injury.
Okay.
And that took some time to sort out. Didn't need surgery in that case, but it did need a lot of rehab. So we'll see how that goes, and I hope that we'll see Grigor Dimitrov fit and fighting and firing serves again. I'm not going to say soon, because I don't want to run back and be too soon and it'd be sad to watch him struggle and not quite be ready.
Yeah.
But, be back to, where he could be.
Right. Yeah. I don't think there could have been a sadder moment at Wimbledon. That was pretty much it. So yeah.
Depending on how you feel about strawberries and pasta.
Okay, moving on to the next thing. So that was Wimbledon. It was a great time. Nick has called it one of his favorite Wimbledons. I don't know what my favorite, all these tournaments now just run together. It was a good Wimbledon. Especially because I really do think we've kind of, there's a sea change. Like there is this new era coming. No, there is this new era here and now. And I think that's really important in sports to have longevity. Like, I think there was a lot of fear when we saw the big four in their retirement age and Serena's leaving and Venus is leaving, not really yet. We will talk about that. But I think there was fear as to what's going to happen to tennis. I was like, who am I going to watch? And there was there was actually no pause. There was no, sort of like moment where it was like, oh, I have no one to watch. It's sort of like seamlessly has carried on. And now we have some great athletes in the sport. So that was Wimbledon. Can't wait for it to come back again next year. We have one more Grand Slam coming up, and that's the US Open, which means we are in officially the US summer swing. It is here. This is it. We're in the swing that leads into the US Open. There are a bunch of tournaments coming up, the first of which has already happened, and we're going to talk about it here. The Newport Open, or the Tennis Hall of Fame Open, as it is known by. And it's in Newport, which is a small town in Rhode Island. I was able to go to it for a few days. It is, so history of it used to be a 250. So only an ATP tournament that was a 250, and it was downgraded this year. And it's funny, I don't know how you feel about this, Nick, but when people say downgraded, it means that the tournament level has been reduced. But for me, it seems like an upgrade because, yes, it was downgraded to an ATP challenger, but it's now also a WTA 125. So you get both the men and the women at one tournament. And for me, that's an upgrade. I don't know what you think.
Yeah, I think it's an upgrade because I don't think the fields were that different for the men compared to previous years. So
yeah,
I definitely think that's an event that a lot of people who are good on grass will go to get themselves some points, regardless of whether it's a challenger or a 250. And now they've got more of the same with the women. And I think if you're going to see yourself some good quality grass court tennis, some would say old school tennis, then that's the place to go. So
who would say old school tennis? Chris Eubanks.
Yes, he was there, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was there. And I talked to him for an interview that will be out soon. We've been releasing these Meet the Player episodes, which as I interview players by going to these tournaments, we're going to put them, I didn't know how to deal with all of these interviews specifically of like how to sort of, structure them. But I think they do all fall into the Meet the Player umbrella because for us, Meet the Player is something that we want to provide to our listeners so that they can get to know who these players are, especially the new ones who are coming up and trying to make it into the top 100 or trying to make a big breakthrough. I think it's a great way to sort of get to know them. So that series lives on our YouTube. There's actually a playlist on our YouTube called Meet the Players. So you can see all the players we've interviewed over the time that the podcast has existed. But I talked to Chris Eubanks at Newport and I asked him because his best results have come from grass. So he actually kind of knows the surface now and does well on it. And I asked him if the grass was different between Wimbledon and Newport. And he said it is radically different, but he called the Newport Open tennis, the grass surface there, old school grass, because he's like, because it's a historical site. So if you don't know, the Hall of Fame Open is at the International Tennis Hall of Fame. It is a historic site. They have a museum there that is really great with all of this tennis memorabilia. And it is actually the location of the tournament that is now known as the US Open. So back in I think it was 1881. 1881 was when the very first US Open happened. And it happened in Newport. And that's the original surface. They've tried to keep it historically as it was. There, I will let you watch the whole interview and listen to what he says. But the one thing he did mention, which actually happened this year and made it so that the tournament was actually down for an entire day, there was no play, is that the way the grass is, it's sort of on the surface it's under is more sandy and loose than Wimbledon.
The bounces are a lot lower.
Okay.
It holds moisture, I would say, a lot better. They don't use covers on the court, which typically at Wimbledon you use covers in the event of rain, so that it preserves the grass a bit more.
Right.
It feels like there's almost like sand underneath it near the baseline. So the patches, like at Wimbledon that you see that are worn out, are just dirt. So it's very solid, it's very hard, it's very firm. Here it's like sand. So as the week progresses, the baseline is going to get chewed up a lot more. It starts to get a lot more uneven. You're going to get a lot more bad bounces here.
Got it.
And so, yeah, they've made some drastic improvements to the course, because I think about 4 years ago, it wasn't even close to the same tournament. It felt it was more like old school grass. This is what they called it, to try to preserve the history of being here at the International Tennis Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was challenging, I would say. Some years ago, things have gotten a ton better, but yeah, it still isn't Wimbledon, or isn't. Unfortunately, I wish it were like Wimbledon, but yeah, it's just not the case.
He said Wimbledon is more compact and hard. There was actually rain every single day that I was there, but they had one absolute deluge. I mean, it was just like a massive thunderstorm. And here's the thing, they're super quick. They come in and out. It's like less than 20 minutes. But there was so much rain and water that the courts flooded. And they don't cover the courts at the International Tennis Hall of Fame. That was also a point that he mentioned. They don't cover the courts. So the courts were just soaked. So that was on a Wednesday. Play was suspended. And then the next day, there was still so much water and the grass was just so wet still that they had to cancel play for the next day as well. And they didn't, So weirdly that they finished the tournament on time. Like they really did a good job to finish the tournament on time, but that's something that can happen at that tournament.
That is very much old school grass court tennis for those who maybe remember Wimbledons of old, even US Opens of old.
Mm-hmm.
Like that reminds me of some really old footage I watched of, I think it was the 1969 US Open final, because that was where Rod Laver became the most recent male player to complete the calendar Grand Slam and win all four majors in 1 year. And the courts were literally breaking apart during it. This wasn't at the Newport location. This was a different location in New York.
Yeah.
Before they moved it. I think it was Forest Hills.
Yes.
Forest Hills before they moved it to Flushing Meadows in Queens.
Flushing.
And yeah, it was such a soggy, stodgy court that, yeah, it was breaking apart. And yeah, your image of that's like, yeah, no, that's perfectly pristine, engineered grass courts that you would get at Wimbledon. There's a reason why the US Open switched from grass to
hard
well,
court.
clay first, then hard. But
mm-hmm.
Yes, the US Open was 3 years on clay, would you believe? But yeah. But yeah, famously in that match, Rod Laver won because he was allowed to change into shoes that had spikes on them, and his opponent did not have those. So that kind of turned the match. But yeah, so that just sounds like, if you want that sort of experience, definitely go there. I mean, look, I'd love to go to the Hall of Fame just because it sounds like a giant tennis museum, and who wouldn't love that?
Yeah, no, it's really great. So the winners of the tournament this year were Zachary Svida on the men's side and Caty McNally on the women's side. Also have an interview with her that is on our YouTube. I'll leave a link on in the description of this podcast. It was really awesome talking to her. I did not know about her extensive elbow injury, and she talked about that during the interview, and it's so crazy seeing how she's come back. She was out for so long and now she's back and now she's won a title. She was the only person to take a set off of Iga at Wimbledon. And she's going to keep going. She's expected to play a full US summer swing. She is going to be playing definitely for sure in Cincinnati, which is her home tournament. And really excited to watch her from now on, actually. I didn't really know much about her until I talked to her in Newport. And is definitely someone I'm going to be watching going forward. I have here, because some people have reached out to us about this, and I think we should just talk about it very, very quickly, because I think it is ridiculous and an unfortunate part of the Hall of Fame Open. But you might have seen that Bill Ackman, who, if you don't know who he is, he's a hedge fund manager, a billionaire. He played in the Newport Open. He was given a wild card in doubles, and he partnered with Jack Sock, who is someone who, for all intents and purposes, had retired from tennis, but apparently had not put in the paperwork. And if you can't see me doing air quotes, I am. And they partnered together to play, and they got a doubles wild card. And when the news first came out, personally for me, I was like, well, that's unfortunate because, in my opinion, it's being done as a stunt. Bill Ackman is 59. And from what I saw, I think one of the headlines was he was trying to be the oldest person with ATP points, which for me, that's just a stunt. That's not anything to do with sports. And, this is a legitimate sporting event. So why are we turning this into sort of like, oh, I want to be the oldest person, blah, blah, blah. I was not on board with it, especially since I feel like that it then takes away a spot from, a legitimate player who could have used the prize money and actually put up a competitive match. So I was not going into it being like, I'm going to watch this match and see what happens. I am the sort of person where if something doesn't interest me or if I think it's wrong, I actually don't kind of double down and be like, well, let me see how it went. That's not my vibe. The tournament grounds are so small though. There's no way you could have avoided this match. I think there was a big crowd actually for it. It wasn't on the center court. They put it on one of the outside courts, and even just walking around, you see it. So I was walking around just taking video footage and photos of players and things like that. And I saw a bit of the match, and the 5 minutes that I saw was so bad that I had to run away, go inside, because it was a level of tennis that I thought, the way I was thinking about it was, if that was me, like if I was Bill Ackman, I would have been so embarrassed to show that tennis in real life. Like I'd be like, no way. Like at a professional event where there are cameras and people can see me, I would never. But hey, to each his own. They lost the match, and, I think they weren't even being, pushed that hard by their opponents. So yeah, all in all, I think it was a woeful performance and should not have been done. I hear a bunch of stuff that people are going to look into it, blah, blah, blah. I just think it was an unfortunate episode that kind of took over the good tennis that was actually happening at this tournament and how great and fun this tournament was. To have that be the headline was unfortunate.
It was, yeah, because that's all everyone was really talking about. Well, until Caty, McNally and Tatiana Marino made the final, then that became the positive story from the event. Yeah, I think there was potential in that kind of stunt where you do, let's put an everyman on a professional tennis court and see how they actually do, because it's particularly Americans, but there are a few people in Britain who think the same, where like, oh yeah, I could win a point. I could probably play well enough to take part professionally. Yeah, I could do that. And kind of show what the difference in the level between someone who's pretty good at their club is, like maybe their top club player who wins every match and is pretty good, compared to what it takes to be a professional. I think there's potential in doing something like that as an education piece, provided it's done in good spirits, provided the person is going out there with no expectation of being able to compete. Well, some expectation of trying to do something, they're going to try, but they're not going to walk away feeling annoyed and angry, which is what I suspect would have happened. That had happened to Bill Ackman. That it didn't work out, and there's that. But the problem is with the attitude of Ackman, his age, kind of the circumstances around where he was playing, it didn't become that. It wasn't fun. It was a farce, and it just is a bizarre incident that is best forgotten about. But hey, look, if anyone wants to sponsor me to take part in the Shrewsbury ITF, and I'll have a crack at it, and you can watch what it really means to lose 6-love. And then you won't think Amanda Anisimova did so bad.
Anyone listening who can make that happen, please do it, because I would probably fly to Shrewsbury just to watch that.
Doesn't even have an airport. I don't know how she managed to land it in the middle of the field, to be honest.
I would make it happen. I would be there. But yeah, I think the biggest part for me was what it took away from the tournament. There were so many excellent players there. And yes, thankfully, Caty McNally and Tatiana Maria were able to rescue it, but that shouldn't have been the headline of the tournament. The headline of the tournament should have been, it is now a mixed event. Look at how awesome that is. And, in such a perfect venue. But, we'll see. Hopefully they won't make that same mistake again next year. What else is happening? Okay, so also wanted to bring attention to Citi Open is next week. Wow, time What is time? There is no time. But Citi Open is next week. We've talked about this before. We'll say it again, though. The draw is insane. Venus Williams was announced as a wild card, which might also bring up with people, how is that different a little bit? It's completely different. It's Venus Williams. She is a Grand Slam champion. She hasn't played in a while, so it's going to be really interesting to see where her level's at compared to whoever her opponent is in the draw. But yeah, it's shaping up to be a great tournament, Nick.
Yeah, Venus Williams is, by the way, has been in training, very physically fit. Yes, she's 45. There's a difference between 45 and 59. And judging by how she's done when she last played in sort of 2023, 2024, can still compete with those in the top 100, which is a level beyond. Also, just seeing that she signed up for an event that's happening during Fan Week at the US Open, which is probably a sign that she's getting a US Open wildcard. So we will see how that goes. Yeah, she's doing one with Goff and Fonseca and Agassi and a couple of other names in there. So I don't know what exactly the event is, but I saw it.
Yeah, now that I realize they did that last year with Agassi, McEnroe, Andy Roddick, and Carlos Alcaraz. It's kind of like a doubles stars of the US Open kind of thing. So that's probably what they're doing now, but with a different cast of characters.
Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, Citi Open's going to be worth watching regardless of that, because you've also got other Grand Slam champions like Naomi Osaka and Emma Raducanu. I think Jessica Pegula's playing, Zhang Qinwen is playing. Amanda Anisimova supposed to play it. Let's see if she does.
Yeah.
I do think there's a possibility that she might pull out. And that's even before we get to the guys. I'm pretty sure. Are Fritz and Tiafoe playing it?
Yes.
Yeah. So
Fritz, Tiafoe, Lorenzo Musetti, Nick Kyrgios has been announced as a wild card. I mean, look at we made a tournament guide for this. I will put a link to the description of this podcast and just check it out. I listed at the time, all the people who are already accepted as being in the tournament. Actually, one person that was listed that I think today might pull out or, in the next few days was Paula Badosa. She was listed as being part of the tournament. Where did she get? Did she win last year?
Yes. She's a defending champion.
She's a defending champion. She won last year, but she just announced on social media that she's been dealing with a psoas tear, and might take her out. Like, it just didn't sound good. It didn't sound like, and I'll be back in a week. It did not sound like that. So I would not be surprised if she withdrew from the tournament, but still an incredible field. And I haven't even mentioned the doubles. There's doubles at this tournament. So this is a really stacked tournament and definitely worth a visit if you're in the area.
Yeah. I've just realized, Anastasia, this isn't in the rundown. We didn't talk about the doubles at Wimbledon.
Oh my word.
We didn't talk about the doubles. Which we probably should, because you just reminded me there. We have to because, if you wanted
Veronika Kudermetova, we have to.
If you wanted to know what the best final of the tournament was, it was the women's doubles final.
Yes.
So, Veronika Kudermetova and Elise Mertens are the ladies doubles champions. They beat Shea Su Wei and Yelena Ostapenko, which ends a run of women's doubles where either Katerina Siniakova or Shea Su Wei wins the women's doubles. Like, Elise Mertens has won it before, but with one of those players, like, I think with Shea. So this is the first time she's won this title without Shea. She's won it with Kudermetova. If Shea Su Wei had won it, by the way, she would have been like top 10 all-time doubles winners at Wimbledon in the ladies. Wow. So that was she was probably going to come back and try for that again. But yeah, that was a fun match, really topsy-turvy, great changes in momentum. And then the other one was probably it was more straightforward, but it was a feel-good story. And that was Julian Cash and Lloyd Glasspool won the Wimbledon men's doubles title. No surprise given how well they've been doing on grass this year. We've kind of been calling it throughout the tournament. But they are the first all-British pair to win the men's doubles title since 1936. It's the third year in a row that at least one British male player has been involved in a doubles team winning Wimbledon. So I say this every year. If you're a British tennis fan, stop obsessing about the singles. Go watch the freaking doubles, because we're actually really, really good at that. We're also really good at wheelchair doubles, although this year Alfie Hewitt fell short in both finals, the doubles and singles.
but he keeps getting to the finals. Like,
It keeps getting
hello. Yeah. It's pretty impressive. I can't believe I feel like I've let down Veronika Kudermetova by not talking about the doubles because, that's just, of course
You were
she
so
won
excited
the
about this.
doubles.
Why are you so excited about this, Anastasia?
I'm only excited about it because of Veronika Kudermetova. No, that's not true. They were both very exciting finals and really great doubles champion. I think with Lloyd Glasspool and Julian Cash, it was inevitable. They were having such a great grass court season. They had won Queens and Eastbourne. Like it was they were on a roll. So I definitely think that was going to happen. I also loved the story of sort of the alternate team, Hijikata and Pell, being there. They kind of a little bit, at least with Pell, he had a little bit of an Anasimova moment where I feel like his serve completely deserted him. He was so nervous being in the finals. So it wasn't as competitive a match as the women's doubles, which was incredibly competitive. Yelena Ostapenko playing with Hei Shu Wei, and then Veronika Kudermetova, my girl Veronika Kudermetova playing with Elise Mertens. If anyone doesn't know, I had a moment where I just thought Veronika Kudermetova was going to win everything. It was after the 2023 Madrid Open. I was fully on board the Veronika Kudermetova train, and then she just did not do anything after that. Like nothing. She didn't do anything. But she has actually been doing really, really well in doubles, and here she is. She's now a Wimbledon champion. So it was really lovely to see her on that stage holding her trophy. Yeah, it was great. I cannot believe we didn't talk about doubles, but thank you, Nick, for saving the day, because I would have been really sad when I was editing and I would be like, oh, didn't talk about the Wimbledon doubles. But yeah, one more thing I want to talk about, because this actually just came into my inbox just before we went on air. But the Cincinnati Open, part of the US Summer Swing, it's going to be changed this year in the sense that it is a longer event. At the end of last year, like literally right after the finals, they started construction on the new site. So they're unveiling a completely new site this year. I think it's now 4 big stadiums. The grounds have been expanded. Practice courts have been expanded. It's like a really big job that they've done. Well, they just announced that they have a 4-part documentary series that is going to be released starting, I think it's August 3rd, on YouTube and actually on a local Fox channel that is here in the States. I will put all the details of the trailer in our description. I just watched the trailer before we came on. And if there's anything I love more than anything is watching sports documentaries. I love sports documentaries. So the moment I saw this trailer, I was like, sign me up. It's 4 parts. Awesome. But it's actually pretty cool. Just from watching the trailer, it seems like it's actually going to be a full history of the Cincinnati Open, which is the longest continuous tournament in the United States. And it's going to
At
be
the same location, right?
Yes. Yeah. So it's going to be a history of the tournament, how they almost lost the tournament from that location last year. There was, talk of it moving somewhere else. So I'm excited to watch that leading up into the tournament itself. So we've come to the end of this, which all that is left now, unless you want to talk about something else, but all that I had left right now, Nick, is what's next in terms of tournaments and also player of the fortnight. Do you have anything else you want to say before that?
No. So I can just do the roundup of what's happening this week. So this week, the ATP is in Båstad, in Gstaad and Los Cabos. Båstad in Sweden, Gstaad in Switzerland. As kind of like, and they are outdoor clay tournaments. And so like there'll be some people going there. Like they're very spectacular locations. Båstad kind of by the beach. Gstaad is in the mountains, and then Los Cabos is in Mexico. That's a hardcore event. They've lost a few big names from the draws because of Wimbledon, and wanted to prepare for the US Summer Swing, but overall still pretty decent. The WTA has got 250s happening in Hamburg and Iasi. I don't know the stat for the ATP, but across the 2 WTA 250 tournaments, there are 13 top 100 players competing. It's going to be an opportunity for some people to score some big points potentially, but they are going to feel more like challenger field. And then the other thing that's happening is the Hopman Cup. which is the Forgotten Cups. Like, I think they've just resurrected it because, we talk about like our kind of cup events, like our Davis Cup and Billie Jean King Cup and United Cup, where you play for your country. The Hopman Cup is another one that kind of has existed for a long time, but very few people care about. And they've tried to, it used to be played just before the Australian Open as a warm-up, and then it got rid of it and replaced it with the United Cup, this all singing, all dancing thing run by the ATP and WTA. And whereas Hopman Cup isn't, I think it's an ITF event. And yeah, it's still their answer to like a mixed doubles trophy for nations. There are 6 countries taking part, with some relatively big names involved. It's going to be on clay, and yeah, if you just fancy a bit of fun, keep an eye on it.
Yeah, it's the Hopman Cup is something where every time I see it's happening, I was like, that's still happening?
I think they got rid of it and now they've brought it back.
Yeah, and again with the big name, so players, Carlos Alcaraz has played Hopman Cup before, after actually his first Wimbledon win. This go around, I think Jasmine Paolini was supposed to play, but she just pulled out. I think Fabio Caboli is playing for Italy.
Tsitsipas is playing. Donna Vekic is playing.
Yeah. So there are names at this Hopman Cup. It just is such an odd cup amongst all the other cups that we have. But yeah, that's pretty much it that's happening this week. Will I be watching? Not really. I might turn on some stuff to just watch, but I'm going to take it easy this week, tennis-wise.
This is a good week off if you're a tennis fan. Like, it's not that these don't matter because, sometimes tournaments like these can really kickstart a player's season. Thinking about last year on the WTA side, like Mira Andreeva won her first title at Ayase. She's the defending champion. She's not playing, but that I think, gave her a good foundation for performances later to come. Or in Palermo, Zheng Qinwen played Karolina Muchova in the final. Well, Palermo's not happening, but it was around at this point in the season. And then Zheng Qinwen ended up having an amazing end of season where she was one of the players to beat. So yeah, I think we'll keep an eye on who wins the tournaments and we'll talk about them, but we probably won't be watching all of the tennis this week.
Yes, definitely. Okay, player of the fortnight. I could go first. My player of the fortnight is Eliot Spizzirri. We've talked about Eliot before. He's a young American player. We first met him at the Challenger event in Illinois, Champaign, where we talked to him and we have actually Meet the Players episode with him from last November. And I ran into him at the Newport Open and recorded another interview with him for Meet the Players. So that is also going to be coming up soon. I think it's awesome to sort of catch up with these players and see how they're doing. A lot has happened since I talked to him in November. He won his first title at the San Diego Challenger just before Indian Wells. He's gone up and down in the rankings and just trying to see what it's like for a player who's just outside of the top 100, the work that they have to do to build, going through qualies and all of that stuff. He went to Europe for the first time and did the whole European clay season and then also grass. So just learning what that is like for a player like him. He was able to get to the semifinals of the Newport Open and was defeated by the eventual champion, Zach. So yeah, he's definitely a player to watch. 23 years old, young American. He's definitely someone, if you're looking for someone to check out at one of these sort of longer 1,000 level events or even qualies at the US Open, Eliot Spizzirri should be someone to watch for sure.
Good pick. I was like, okay, I've got to pick someone from Wimbledon here. And there's a couple, and I went, oh wait, there's too many players to choose from because the chaos gave us lots of lovely new players to introduce ourselves to, like Cinderella Story, Solana Sierra, Lara Siegmund going from 104 to 54 in 2 weeks because she got to the quarterfinals and nearly beat Arina Sabalenka playing crazy tennis. On a technical level, I've never seen anyone just stop a ball the way she does. I really thought that other players that you could have spotted, I could have spotted along the way or discovered. And then I realised there was one obvious choice, Caty McNally, who is the Newport champion on her way back from an elbow injury, was touted a long time ago as one of the players of the future, which I will get to in a minute because there's some interesting parallels here that she may have set the tone for the 2 weeks in multiple ways. She was the only player at Wimbledon to take a set off Iga Swiatek to annoy her enough that she dropped the set, and then goes to Newport and beats Tatiana Maria, who was the queen of grass, at least queen of queens anyway, in the final, and has an amazing run. And she's got a great story. But here's where some fun parallels kind of happen here. So Caty McNally, as I said, is promising junior. She came along the ranks with Iga Swiatek and Coco Gauff. She and Iga won a junior doubles title together. I think it was the French. And she beat Iga in the French Open singles in the juniors in the semi-finals in 2018, and then lost to Coco Gauff in the final. That was the result that drove Iga so mad that she, even though she hadn't planned it, she then entered junior Wimbledon and won it. To prove that she could win a Grand Slam because she missed out on Roland Garros. Fast forward, sort of, what was that, 2018? So this is 7 years later. Iga loses in the semi-finals of the senior Roland Garros event, which Coco Gauff wins. Locks in, gets on with the grass court season, and who is in her way along the way but Caty McNally, who drives her crazy enough to help her figure out what she was doing. Because Iga looked a little ropey the first couple of matches, and then she locks in after beating Caty McNally from a set down. And Caty McNally, you set the tone for this week, as well as being a great story. And, you know, it's great to see that she's part of this generation that's come through. She actually got to the US Open doubles final with Coco Gauff a couple of years ago, I think.
Okay.
And so there you go. Caty McNally is at the center of all things these last 2 weeks, including Grand Pass meeting her at Newport. So for me, I can't think of a more appropriate player of the fortnight.
That is awesome. That is such a good pick. And I love those parallels. Like, I didn't even put two and two together, but it's so funny seeing these play, because again, I had no idea, you know, she was such good friends with Iga until she told me. When she won, Coco Gauff like reposted her winning post on Instagram, like congratulating her. So it's like they're all still friends and they all came up together. It's nice to see that players can still do that. She gave me a great answer, which is I think the quote that I used when I promoted her Meet the Players episode, was because I asked her, I was like, what is it like? You know, you're playing a friend, you know, how do you separate that? Because I feel like it might be tough to do. And she was like, yeah, like there's just an understanding that some people have where it's like, yes, we're friends. You know, we can leave the court and go have lunch together right after. But once we're on the court, it's on. And I loved her answer to that. Again, like such a great discovery for me. And I will definitely be paying attention to her during this US summer swing for sure.
She's a really lovely person. Why wouldn't you root for her? And I think she's definitely someone you should keep an eye out on this US summer swing. In addition to all the big stars, there are these other American smaller stars that deserve some love as well.
Yes, for sure. Okay, that was it. Another great episode in the bag, another Grand Slam in the bag. It is only going to get busier from here. Next week, we'll probably have a mini pod. And when I say mini, I mean really tiny. A really mini pod.
Half an hour long, guys.
45 minutes, okay? 45 minutes. Let's see.
Depends on which of us does it.
Yeah. But you know, we're going to really enjoy some time and not really do much tennis-y stuff this week because the summer swing is coming and there's Citi Open and then Cincinnati and US Open all before you know it. Thank you for listening. I have a lot of new listeners, I feel like, this week from Wimbledon. Thank you. If you are listening to this on a podcast app of your choice, please give us 5 stars, leave us a comment. I've been really enjoying people's right now. You know, we have gotten some sort of online interaction and stuff, but it's the people who come up to me in person. That's the stuff that's, you know, blowing my mind. So thank you all, but please leave us a comment, leave us 5 stars. It really does help with other people discovering this podcast. Share it with your friends. If you're watching us on YouTube, like and subscribe. There's going to be more stuff coming to you. I hope you're enjoying the Meet the Players series. And let us know also what you want to see. Like, what are you liking? What do you want different? if you don't tell us, I don't know. And I just put it out there. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? So yeah, Nick, another great one. Thanks for joining me as always. And yeah, bye guys.